are now live streaming. Everything you do and say is recorded.
That moves really slowly at times.
I don't know if it's actually a correct time.
You could submit it.
Slow?
Maybe they changed it when the clock went
They
back.
have, yeah.
Yeah, I think it used to be a little slow. Now it seems to be right.
Okay.
Speaking Mike, okay.
Keith said he was coming. Mike didn't respond.
You know, since it isn't required, maybe I'll just do my spiel
Sure.
before we get started on the record. Good evening. Welcome to the November meeting of the Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals. We only have 3 cases tonight. The first one that will be called is 73 Pheasant Run. The second one is 18 Haskell Drive. And the third is 16 Spruceland Terrace. We'll ask you to come up to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, present your case, then the board will have the opportunity to ask you questions, make comments, clarification, and then anyone in the audience wishing to speak is welcome to do so. Okay, killed enough time. Pledge to the flag, please. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to ask our town clerk, Diane Terranova, to read the first case.
Do roll call?
I'm sorry, I knew it when I started saying it, that we were going to do roll call.
No problem. Mr. Hain, Mr. Michaely.
Here.
Mr. Storr, Mr. Tillmans.
Here.
Mr. Robluski.
Here.
Mr. Zalak.
Here.
Chairman Monticelli.
Here, thank you. And now if you would read the first case, please.
Yes. Notice is hereby given of the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Lancaster to be held Thursday, November 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. local time in the Lancaster Town Hall. The meeting will be recorded. The item for consideration by the Zoning Board of Appeals is petition of Robert Feliz, 73 Pheasant Run, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of installing a shed and a public drainage easement on premises owned by the petitioner at 73 Pheasant Run Lane, Pheasant Run, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning, Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a shed in a public drainage easement, Chapter 400 zoning, Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster, requires no structures other than fencing allowed within any drainage access easement. Petitioner therefore requests a 1.5-foot encroachment into the drainage easement variance.
Thank you. And do we have a representative for Pheasant Run? Good evening.
I'm Robert Feliz.
Okay.
So you already just explain why I'm asking for this?
Just for the record, we need you to give your address.
Yeah, 73 Pheasant Run, Lancaster.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, so the reason I'm asking for the variance is I had a tool shed that was built in that property back in 1991 or 1992. It sits on top of a concrete pad that was also installed at that time. I believe back then it was okay to have it where it was, and from when I went to replace the shed, we went to get a permit, and apparently the shed where it currently sits now is into the easement, I believe, 1.5 feet or 18 inches, something of that nature. So I'm just asking to have the variance so I can put the new shed back in the exact same spot the old shed was in.
Okay, why don't we start with Mr. Michaely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you've been there for over 30 years or so?
I bought the house from my parents, so
Okay.
yes, my parents
You grew up
moved
there?
in 88 and I moved in 2008.
Has there, the time you've been there, or has there ever been any drainage issues or flooding in the back? Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Storr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we were to grant this variance, would you be willing to move the shed at your expense if the county or town
Yeah.
ever needs to access the easement?
Absolutely. It's not bolted down, so it can be moved fairly easily, I would imagine, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. No more questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. Mr. Tillmans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tillmans. Mr. Obluski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Zelak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have one question, actually. It's for Matt. Matt, from a aerial view, this easement, there's numerous sheds and fences that go through this easement. Do you know when the last time any work was done on that easement?
I'm not aware of anything.
I drove by, I ran around to Shady Lane that's behind you, and
Behind it?
behind your
yeah.
house, excuse me. And there's a lot of sheds that are already on that. So when your parents were there's never been a water issue with water?
Not that I'm aware of,
standing water,
no.
whatnot?
Yeah.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zelak. Back to Mr. Storr's question about moving the shed, you realize you'd also have to break up the concrete?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And there is a form that requires your signature that needs to be filed with the county clerk's office.
Okay.
Putting that agreement into effect, and then it stays with the property. So if you sell your property, then the
Okay.
buyer would be bound.
Yeah. And that's just saying that I would move it, should you have to get into the easement for
Exactly.
any reason.
That
at my
it- Yeah,
place.
it's your
Okay.
responsibility.
Yeah, that's fine. That's acceptable.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Anybody in the audience? Okay. There being none, would somebody care to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Thanks, Jen.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings, that this area variance for a single-family residence according to Part 617.5 C17 of the New York State Codes, Rules, and Regulations is a Type 2 action and has been determined not to have a significant impact on the environment. Therefore, it is not subject to a secret review. That no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the variance relief sought. That no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought because drainage and flooding issues have not been a problem in the past. That the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought. That the requested area variance relief is not substantial. That the requested area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. That the alleged difficulty is self-created, but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought. That this board has taken into consideration the benefit of the applicant if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. That within the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief. And also, I'd like to add a condition, which we spoke of already, that the applicant would add and record with the county an easement access agreement to remove, and would become responsible for removing the shed at his own cost if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Thank you, Mr. Obluski. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Michaely.
Yes.
Mr. Storr.
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans.
Yes.
Mr. Robluski.
Yes.
Mr. Zelak.
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli.
Yes. Congratulations. You have your variance. Just follow up with the building department.
So I go to the building department tomorrow, whenever? the
You
next
can
couple
do
of
that, or
days?
you can call and set something up.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you all for your time, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Okay, next case, please.
Second case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of the petition of Kathleen Eberly and Christopher Frank, 18 Haskell Drive, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of installing a generator on premises owned by the petitioners at 18 Haskell Drive, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirement of Chapter 400 zoning Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a whole house generator 4.6 feet or 4 feet 7 3/16 inches from the side property line. Chapter 400 zoning Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires that non-portable exterior generators shall not be located within 5 feet of any lot line. The petitioners therefore request a .4 foot or 4 3/16 inches variance.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Kathleen Eberly, 18 Haskell.
Okay, thank you. Please tell us about your request.
Our neighbor directly involved with us has no problem with us putting it there. There's no windows there, there's no vents, nothing. It's the perfect place to put it at the property. And next property over, he's at least 50 feet from us. So, I mean, there's plenty of room, plenty of land, and he doesn't mind. I have a letter from the neighbors directly involved with us.
Okay, may we see that, please? Yeah, thank you. Carolyn Kuick would be
Yeah, she's across the street from
across the street from you, okay. Carolyn Kuick lives at 15 Haskell Drive and says that she approves our granting the variance for the generator installation. And Michael Tojak is on the same side?
Yeah, he's next to us.
Okay, the same
Yeah.
side where the generator is,
Yes.
right? Okay, all right. Also has no opposition. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Well, we could put it in the backyard, but we have 2 large dogs and pine trees, so it would and we'd have to dig for electric because there's windows back there. So this would be the absolute perfect spot if we could put it there.
Okay. It's already in place, isn't it?
No,
It's not in place?
no.
All right. Okay, questions from the board, starting with Mr. Storr?
Thank you, Madam Chair, no questions.
Mr. Tillmans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Roblewski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Mr. Zelak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. She actually answered my question with going from the backyard. So you got pine trees that are there, which are surface roots, you have to cut through them.
Yeah,
Correct.
and and plus we'd have to dig for the electric and the gas lines, which would be really expensive.
You're gonna have
Might
to dig
just get us out of,
You're gonna have to dig for those regardless, aren't you?
Pardon me?
You would have to dig for those regardless.
No, because we're right next to the air conditioning, so everything's right there.
Okay. No further questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Michael?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I have no questions either. Anyone in the audience like to speak about this matter? There being none, may we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Tillmans.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings, that this area varies relief for a single-family residence according to Part 617.5, Section C-17 of the New York State Codes, Rules, and Regulations. It's a Type 2 action, and has been determined not to have a significant impact on the environment, therefore it is not subject to a severe review. That no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought. That no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought. That the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought. However, it is not cost-effective for them to do that. That the requested area variance relief is not substantial, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created, but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought. This board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. Within the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Zelak? Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Michaeli.
Yes.
Mr. Storr.
Yes.
Mr. Tillman.
Yes.
Mr. Roblewski.
Yes.
Mr. Zelak.
Yes.
Chairman Monticelli.
Yes. Thank you. You're all set. Your variance has been granted. And again, just follow up with the building department.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Okay, we have one more case for this evening. Diane, would you read the Spruce Lawn case, please?
The third case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of the petition of Robert and Gail Bridenstine, 16 Spruceland Terrace, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of installing a privacy fence on premises owned by the petitioners at 16 Spruceland Terrace, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning Section 34, subsection C of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a 6-foot-tall privacy fence in a required front yard setback. Chapter 400 zoning Section 34, subsection C of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires within non-industrial districts no fence or wall other than a necessary retaining wall over 3 feet in height shall extend into the front yard of any lot. The petitioners therefore request a 3-foot variance.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Robert Bridenstine. I live at 16 Spruceland Terrace.
Okay, great. Can you tell us about your request, please?
Yes, I'm looking to, I live on the corner of cul-de-sac, and we had an above-ground pool on the side of our house. And previously, we moved in 2017. We requested a variance for a fence that would go around the back of the house and down the side of the house, and went to the corner of the above-ground pool. We've since removed the pool and the deck and just put a patio in the back. And I'm looking to have the fence come off of the side of the house and go back to the same post where the current fence is.
And you are requesting a 6-foot privacy.
A 6-foot fence, yes.
Okay. I don't see anyone in the audience other than our building inspector, so we'll go to Mr. Tillman's first. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Thank you. Mr. Roblewski,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Mr. Zeland,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions as well.
Mr. Michaeli,
No questions from me.
and Mr. Storr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Thank you all. I have no questions either. Anyone care to make a motion? I can do that.
Keith is sick.
Thank you. Whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Lancaster has made the following findings, that this area variance for a single-family residence, according to Part 6175.5617 of the New York State Code's Rules and Regulations, is a Type 2 action and has been determined not to have a significant impact on the environment. Therefore, it is not subject to a seeker review. That no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the area variance relief is substantial in that it is twice as much as the code allows, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. That within the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum necessary to afford relief.
Second.
Thank you. And such fence will not unduly shut out light to adjoining properties.
I'll still second.
Okay, good.
What about fire hazards?
Fire hazard.
You're really on the second. That such fence will not create a fire hazard. That such fence will not create a fire hazard by reason of its construction.
Jeez, I couldn't even see that. Thank you. And one more thing, that such fence will not create a fire hazard by reason of its construction or location.
Second.
Doesn't work that way.
I already got him down.
Okay.
We get paid per second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Michaeli,
Yes.
Mr. Storr,
Yes.
Mr. Tillman,
Yes.
Mr. Roblewski.
Yes.
Mr. Zilak,
Yes.
Chairman Monticelli.
Yes. Okay, you are all set. Just follow up with the building department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good luck. You too. Okay, any other business before the board? Going once, going twice. Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you. Second, all in favor?
Hi.
Call it a day. All right, who had 20 minutes?
I was thinking,
I think that's.
I had 7:20.